Let's begin today's story on Naboo. Padme Amidala has just died in childbirth and her funeral is held in the city of Theed. In the original timeline, Darth Vader did not go to the funeral. In fact, he probably didn't even know it was on. Palpatine would have done everything in his power to keep Vader away from it. As with anything regarding Padme, Vader was very unpredictable. In today's story, we are going to say that directly after Revenge of the Sith, Vader learns that her funeral is on Naboo and he goes there immediately. He would keep his distance, hiding far in the shadows and ensuring that no one saw him. He was too big and recognizable to stand out in a crowd, so he watches from a rooftop at a safe distance. Anakin felt a multitude of emotions. On one hand, he was incredibly upset and sad at that moment. The love of his life, and arguably the main reason he lived, was dead. But on the other hand, he was furious. Anger and hatred protruded from him. It was smart that he was this far away, for if he was up close, everyone would be in danger of his wrath. Anakin's old apprentice, Ahsoka Tano, was also at the funeral. She blended in with the crowd. Her and Padme were surprisingly close, and she felt obligated to say goodbye to her close friend. But not only that, in her mind Anakin was dead and he wouldn't get to say goodbye, so she was doing it for the both of them. Returning to Naboo whilst the Empire is on high alert for Jedi was extremely dangerous, but this only proved how deeply she cared for Anakin and Padme. When the ceremony concludes, Vader motions to leave and go back to Coruscant. He has seen enough, felt too many emotions. Ahsoka senses a disturbance in the Force. It is dark and cold, yet extremely familiar. She had noticed it when she was first on Naboo, but now it was all she could focus on. Ahsoka let the Force guide her and she left the crowd, not knowing where she was going. Vader can see his starfighter in the distance as he makes his way towards the entrance, but as he goes to enter, he hears someone yell stop behind him. Who dares speak to a Sith Lord this way? Vader thought to himself. But as he turned, it was the last person he expected to see. He couldn't help but say Ahsoka. Ahsoka was extremely confused. She asked him if she knew him. The two were locked in a standstill until Vader replied, "A long time ago." Ahsoka finally puts the pieces together and realizes that this was her old master, Anakin Skywalker. She asked him what happened to him. Vader's response was heartbreaking and cold. He says that everyone in his life failed him. Even you, Snips. As he draws his next breath, he uses the Force to push her back into a wall. Rage was consuming the Dark Lord. If there was one day to not mess with him, it was today. Ahsoka gets back to her feet and exclaims that she will not fight him. As the two continue their confrontation, Obi-Wan and Yoda, who are in Bail Organa's ship whilst he's at the funeral, sense the light and dark sides of the Force attacking each other. They know people are fighting nearby. They immediately leave their post and hurry to the fighting. When they arrive, they see Lord Vader standing above the beaten Ahsoka Tano. She was alive, but gasping for air. Yoda uses the Force to push Vader away from Ahsoka. Obi-Wan recognizes that it's Anakin and calls out to his old apprentice. The Jedi Master was shocked to see him alive, but could tell he was extremely damaged due to the state he was in. Now obviously, Vader will be absolutely furious to see Obi-Wan. You could make the argument that Vader hates Obi-Wan more than anyone in the world, maybe even more than Mace Windu at this point. But Vader also knew that he was no match for all three of them, especially considering he didn't have a lightsaber, which he lost to Obi-Wan on Mustafar. The Jedi would attempt to reach out to Anakin, calling him back to the light. In this moment, they wouldn't want his death, especially Ahsoka and Obi-Wan, who still believe there is good in him. Obi-Wan speaks about Padme, asking Vader to think about how she would react to him now. Yoda continues, explaining that she would be disappointed. She was always a kind and loyal person. She would hate the destructive man he has become. Vader couldn't take this anymore. They were just toying with him. They didn't actually care. Obi-Wan was the person who turned him into this, not himself. As the Jedi tried to bring him back to the light, Vader would once again force push Ahsoka, this time letting her fly off a cliff, causing Obi-Wan and Yoda to race after her. This gave Vader enough time to get into his ship and fly away. Obi-Wan was distraught. He didn't understand when he failed his apprentice. Ahsoka greeted her old friends before explaining that there is still good in Anakin. She can sense it. The other two agree and know that if they defeat the Emperor and restore peace, they need Anakin on their side. They leave Naboo, temporarily placing Luke and Leia under Bail Organa's care. Darth Vader goes back to Coruscant where he greets his master atop a rooftop. They are watching Mas Amedda burn all of the lightsabers from the Jedi Temple. Vader's new master, Darth Sidious, tasks him with constructing a new lightsaber. If he is to be a Jedi killer, he needs this weapon. Vader would begin a long journey. He has to kill a Jedi and take their Kyber crystal, as the sword of a Sith is not given, it is taken. He travels to the watery moons of Alderlam, where he kills Jedi Master Kirak Infila, stealing his Kyber crystal. The process of turning a Kyber crystal red or bleeding the crystal is very difficult. The user must pour all of their hatred and dark side energy into the crystal, causing the crystal so much agony and pain that it bleeds and becomes crimson red. In order to do this, Vader travels back to Mustafar, the stage of his greatest defeat and pain. It is not only when he lost to Obi-Wan, but also the last time he saw Padme Amidala alive. He heads to the lava bank where Kenobi sliced his limbs off and placed the crystal in the stony earth. Vader begins to pour his anger into the Kyber, thinking about all of the terrible things that has happened in his life. He remembers his mother's death, Ahsoka leaving the Jedi, the dreams of Padme dying in childbirth, and finally, her death. He uses all of this pain and anger to cause the crystal to change color. But something unexpected also happened. As he thought about Padme and her death, he began to get flashbacks of their time together. He saw them rolling around in the grassy plain of Naboo, sharing their first kiss at Padme's lake house, and even the moment she told them they were pregnant. Vader began to shake. He wanted to forget these memories. He remembered being a boy on Tatooine, and even though he and his mother were slaves, they loved each other and did everything they could to be there for one another. All of the happiest moments in Anakin's life flashed before his eyes, and before he knew it, he jolted back as a light shone directly onto his Kyber crystal. He was confused what was happening. He wouldn't have expected his good memories to bleed the Kyber crystal. Instead of that happening, he looks at the Kyber and sees that it's shining a bright purple, the combination of both light and dark. Lord Vader didn't know what to do. He was confused. He kept thinking back to Naboo and his old friends trying to get him to come back to the light. Maybe that was the correct path. He still had people who cared about him. Vader decides to go back to Naboo. He needs to talk to the one person who would always help him. As he lands his starfighter on the luxurious planet, he goes to the burial chamber of Padme. Vader gets on one knee and begins to tear. He apologizes to Padme for everything and says he needs her guidance. He wishes she was still here and they were moving to Naboo with their children. He blamed himself for not leaving the Order with her long ago. He knew that now that was the best course of action for true happiness. Vader asks for her help, but she remains quiet. She is dead. However, as Vader looks up, he sees the mystical being of Qui-Gon Jinn appear before him. He had returned from the netherworld of the Force. Vader asks if it is truly him. Qui-Gon does what he is best at, giving advice. He tells Anakin that the journey of a Jedi can be long and daunting, and that he is facing many obstacles along the way. But he knows in his heart what the correct path is. The two talk for a long time, Vader believing that he is not deserving of happiness or forgiveness. Qui-Gon knew he didn't mean it, but allowed Anakin to speak his mind, as he knew that a true Sith wouldn't sit down and speak his problems with another being. Anakin was no Sith, just a broken man who can fight back for forgiveness. Qui-Gon explains to Anakin that he has completed his destiny. Master Jin explained to his old apprentice that in order to create balance, the Chosen One prophecy required a cleansing of the Jedi Order. He did what he was supposed to do, but now he must correct the evil he inflicted and defeat the Sith and repurpose the Jedi to serve as keepers of balance. In this moment, Anakin Skywalker turns back to the light side of the Force, pledging to Qui-Gon that he will help their friends destroy the Emperor. Qui-Gon smiles and tells Anakin that Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and Yoda are currently hiding on Polis Massa. If he leaves now, he might be able to catch up with them. Anakin Skywalker travels to Polis Master, terrified of the confrontation that was about to unfold. He expected them to cast him aside, forcing him to leave, but the opposite happened. As the Jedi sense his arrival, they ignite their lightsabers and ask the Darth how he found them. But Anakin told them to put their sabers away. Qui-Gon Jinn told them where they were. This confused Ahsoka the most. She knew of Qui-Gon since Obi-Wan and Anakin had spoken about him, but knew that he had been dead for over a decade. But it was Yoda and Obi-Wan that knew he was speaking the truth. Yoda had been speaking to Qui-Gon for some time now, and Yoda had mentioned this to Obi-Wan. Anakin got on his knees and begged for forgiveness, apologizing for all of his actions. He knew that everything he did was wrong. Yoda tells the Chosen One to stand up. The Grand Master reminds Anakin that less than 72 hours ago, he massacred the entire Jedi Order and has enslaved the galaxy to darkness. He couldn't forgive him, not yet, but that doesn't mean it can't be earned. Anakin explains that he will help them defeat Sidious and restore peace to the galaxy. Vader is able to get them onto Coruscant undetected, and their combined strength will be enough to overwhelm Sidious. They all sneak back onto Coruscant and lay low in the city until Vader informs them that it is the right time to attack. They go to Padme's old apartment, which they knew would be vacant, and wait. Even though the attack on the temple happened a week ago, they could sense the deaths of thousands of Jedi. It was almost cruel making Vader come back to this place, but it also reassured what he was fighting for. Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and Yoda decided to not tell Anakin about his children until the fight was over, believing that it might distract him and cause him to become sloppy. Anakin arrives at the apartment and tells the Jedi that it's time, and that Padme was currently in the Imperial Palace. They sneak through the city, not actually knowing where this was, until Obi-Wan realized where Anakin was leading them, the Jedi Temple. They sneak through the corridors until they make it to Palpatine's personal residence. Anakin was the first to enter, igniting his purple blade and pointing it directly at Sidious, who snarled in anger. The Jedi follow close behind, each igniting their lightsabers. The Emperor didn't have another route out, he must fight to survive. Sidious taunts Vader that he always knew he was weak and that it was useless killing Padme in order to keep him alive. This ignited a fire inside Vader, exactly what Palpatine wanted. They all leaped at each other and began fighting. Each person in the room held a different colored lightsaber, blue, green, red, purple, and even white. A rainbow cascaded on the wall as Yoda leaped from surface to surface. Sidious channeled his anger and aggression, trying to eliminate the Jedi. Anakin swung with precision, using his brute strength and aggression to take control of the duel. But as Sidious ignited a second lightsaber, he was able to impale Kenobi and kill him. He turned and focused his attention on Ahsoka, but Yoda and Anakin were there to save her, blocking all of the incoming strikes. Very quickly, Sidious became completely outmatched by the Jedi, and it was Anakin who delivered the final strike, killing the Emperor. As they saw his body drop to the floor, Ahsoka ran straight to Obi-Wan. Yoda lowered his head. They couldn't believe that he was dead. The following days would be extremely busy. With the death of Sidious, an emergency meeting would be called by Bail Organa and Mon Mothma, where they would explain what happened and present the evidence that Palpatine was a Sith Lord and was the leader of the Separatists. They weren't able to sway all of the senators to their side, but enough to ensure that Organa and Mothma were elected as co-chancellors of the Republic. Even though they pushed hard for it, the Jedi did not have a place in the Republic anymore, and they were forced to begin their new Jedi Order off-world, going to Naboo. It was here where Ahsoka broke the news that Anakin had twin children, which Padme gave birth to right before her death. He couldn't have been more overjoyed, and he believed that this was his chance to redeem himself. He helped Ahsoka and Yoda begin the new Jedi Order, which his children will be welcomed into when they came of age. The Jedi Order was repurposed. They made tremendous mistakes in the past, and now they had the opportunity to right their wrongs. Qui-Gon would help Yoda realize this and assist the Grand Master in establishing the Jedi Code, which was less dogmatic and strict and focused on finding balance. Anakin was visited again by Qui-Gon, who congratulated him on doing what was right. Although Padme was gone, Anakin had his new family with him, and he strived to honor the memory of his late wife and ensure that his children grew up in a world safe from the Sith. If you enjoyed today's video, you must watch What If Darth Vader Spoke to Padme's Force Ghost and What If Vader Upgraded His Suit. Please consider becoming a member for $1 a month, it really helps us out. Thank you all for watching, and may the Force be with you.